And welcome once again to Let's Talk.
Yes, this is Let's Talk, listener call-in radio, where your voice matters. And where we take on the important issues of the day.
Absolutely.
If you would like to get in the conversation today, you can call in to KWMR at 415-663-8492 or 8317. And today, Stephen Hurwitz is running the board.
Oh, boy.
And Paul is absent today, but we have in the studio a special guest, Maya Rose.
Hi, so happy to be here, Shelley.
Yeah, and I'm Shelley Rugg. And what are we talking about today?
You know, this is a really tough issue today. We're talking about, well, sort of a MeToo. We're talking about, of course, anything goes. But what do we do in the face of some of our most well-known and famous artists who have been called out for sexual harassment and worse, sort of the floodgates that were opened by Harvey Weinstein? That's what we're going to take on. And it's a hot-button issue today. And I think it's not the easiest one, at least for me to know what to do, etc. So that's what we're going to take on, and your calls are more than welcome. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think it's very challenging. And just to mention, we're just giving our opinions today, and everyone's opinions are welcome, and we hope you will call in. And again, the numbers are 415-663-8492 or 8317. Before the whole Me Too thing really kicked in with Weinstein, there was Woody Allen, okay?
Yeah.
And I am a major Woody Allen fan. So, this is a real struggle for me to grapple with how to deal with that. And, the saving grace for me, I guess, is that I think his older work is better than his newer work. And so I don't have to chase after any new work. But, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to just not ever want to watch a Woody Allen movie again. But I was thinking it kind of reminds me of, you see somebody and they seem really cool and special, and then you find out things about them and suddenly they start to turn ugly. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with men.
With men.
Excuse me. I think Woody Allen's going to take care of himself. It's not like it's a new issue for Woody Allen. That it's something that's been going around for years and years and years. But, I think that with somebody like a director, if people don't show up to his movies, he's got a new one that's coming out. And if I think people don't show up, that's a very strong message to the people that produce these movies. And likewise, it's going to be tough for him. He works with stars. And it's going to be, I think, pretty hard for him from now on to get people to want to be in his movies. I think it's going to be tainted. At least that's what I'm expecting.
Right, tainted. I think that's a good word.
Honestly, I hope so, because I think we need to send the message to artists, to directors, and to famous people that no matter how famous they are, they still can't do terrible things. They can't traumatize people. And by still supporting his art, by going to his movies, by giving him money, we're telling him that, and sending the message to everybody, that it's okay to do what they're doing as long as you're that famous, that good of an artist, that good of a director.
That wealthy, that's another one.
Yeah.
It's sort of a sidebar issue, but so many wealthy people in America can get away with whatever they want.
Absolutely.
Because they have enough money to get through our judicial system, which is... yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
It's money and it's power and respect also, because a lot of the people in this movement we're talking about are really influential because of their art or just their really high standing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard so like the actors, they want to get ahead. They want to get good roles. And a director like Weinstein has been making, what are considered good films, and then, suddenly they can't comfortably go there anymore.
Yeah, a very powerful man who can make or break careers. Puts him in a real tough spot for a budding actress who, and he picked on young women who really were not sophisticated into the ways of Hollywood.
I think that's how it works. Exactly.
Yeah.
We prey on those who have less knowledge, who have more fear, who have more to lose, more to gain. Right? If you really want that part, what are you going to do?
Well, I think one of the issues we want to address today, though, is what do we, as individuals, how do we want to react to this?
I think it's really important for us to change this culture of skepticism that we have towards victims. Because when a victim comes out, most often, we got to choose who to believe. And a lot of times we'll say things like, oh, well, there's no evidence. But we're dealing with a crime for which there often is no evidence. So we have to make that judgment call. And a lot of times we decide to side with whoever's art we like more or whoever's more powerful. So what I think is most important is to try to give power back to the people who have had their power taken away by the powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's really so eye-opening to have the MeToo movement become men are under attack.
Oh, it's a witch hunt.
I mean, a lot of men feel this way. There's movements that have risen up around this. And, I personally do know at least one man who was a high school teacher who, he gave somebody a bad grade and they lied.
No.
And he's no longer a high school teacher. He went on to do other things. But it does happen. I'm afraid to, I hate to say that, but it's true. There are times when people will lie about other people. And so that, I wish people would stop doing that because that causes that gray area.
Yeah, and that helps to discredit other victims.
Right.
I actually just read that about roughly 2 to 10% or somewhere in between there of rape accusations turn out to be false. So it is still kind of a small number, I think, but you're right, it does happen.
We know in that vein, it's not directly to it, but one thing that with Harvey Weinstein, there's a group of people around him that enable him, and there are actors who know what he's doing and choose to ignore it. There was a situation where he would bring budding actors, young girls up to his hotel room. Not by themselves, but an associate of his would bring them up, a female, and would set the girl at ease. And then she goes, oh, I got a meeting, and leaves her by herself. So, this is...
Right.
I'm not saying it's always that way. I'm just saying that...
It's a creepy game.
Well,
everybody's in on it.
It is disturbing to think that women would be in on this game, against other women.
A lot of them are actually pretty delusional. I watched Leaving Neverland recently, and God, it was terrifying. It was heartbreaking. And it was really heartbreaking to think that there were parents out there who would take their children to see Michael Jackson and stay with him there and just be okay with their children sleeping in a room with him, being away with him all day, not keeping in touch with their children. And eventually they ended up lying for Michael Jackson. And a lot of them were like, they felt bad afterwards. They realized their mistakes. Some of them didn't quite. So there is this mental manipulation that goes into it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it begins that way. I think they begin by actually enlisting the parents before they actually do what they're going to do. I just remember that Coach Sandusky, even though I'm from Sandusky, Ohio, he's given us a bad name, but he would cultivate the parents first. By the time he was done, they thought he was just the greatest guy in the world, and then he did what he did.
Right, right.
So I got a different question, though. Where do we draw the line personally? I'm saying, what do we consider actions that are strong enough for us to say, okay, I'm just for my own well-being. I'm not going to see that guy's movies. I'm not going to listen to Michael Jackson's music, etc.
You know, it's up to you whether you want to decide that that person's art is good enough for you to consume it without thinking about what they did. It's up to you in your heart. And it's okay, I'm not judging if you want to listen to Michael Jackson, but I know that I can't without thinking of what he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that mean you don't want to listen to his music?
I mean, I never really did in the beginning because I grew up knowing that he was like this. I grew up with those tabloids.
That's
and
right.
I grew up hearing my mom talk about Woody Allen and say he was a terrible man. So I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had that perspective from the get-go. I'm a little older, so I remember I had a crush on Michael Jackson when he was a little kid, like me, and then watching him over the years change and morph. That was weird enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, he became very strange.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, celebrity makes people strange because their lives are so outside of the norm.
And I think Michael Jackson was abused as a child as well, so he didn't really understand what it's like to love somebody and not abuse them and take advantage of them, and that's not an excuse at all, but it can be a little bit of an explanation.
Right. I mean, that makes me think about how, we really do have a strong tendency, and especially with the onset of social media, to shame. Anytime somebody does something that is wrong, we want to shame them, or worse, put them in jail. And I think we don't have enough of examining deeper. So many people are injured in this world, and then they go on to injure others, and that's the time to go, why?
Yeah, what starts this culture of injury, of hurt?
Right. And can if we can identify the why and work through that issue, we can maybe start to change some of this stuff. And I think there are a lot of men. I mean, even though there's some that say, "Oh, poor us," there are a lot of men who are really embracing, being good people.
I have seen that too, just amongst my friend circle, my family. I'm very blessed to have that. I have seen a lot of men changing and really introspecting and looking at how they treat women, because otherwise they might not really think about it.
Right. Our culture has kind of created this, and it's up to us to evolve it to a better place. You're listening to KWMR. This is Let's Talk, and we'd love for you to call in and get in this conversation.
Yeah, call in.
It's feeling a little challenging today, but I think it's a great topic. The numbers to call are 415-663-8492 or 8317.
Expanding this beyond the just Kevin Spacey, what do we do about this? The MeToo movement has created an awareness that just didn't exist before. And I think that life's not going to be the same.
Thank God.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that, those power relationships, though, that doesn't mean somebody is just going to all of a sudden, try and disrupt that power relationship. Face it, your career is at stake, and your status with your coworkers. You get branded in a certain way. There is a lot of pressure, just like it has been, not to report this and not to.
Right, and that's why in 2019 and moving forward, we need a lot more heroes. It's heroic to be the whistleblower, like somebody recently did with Trump, and how he went ahead and gave clearances to people who had been denied top secret security clearances. This is a big deal, and so
it's important to stand up for what's right, and it's important to protect other people who can't stand up for themselves, people who are younger and people who are marginalized and don't have the same voice we do.
How do we do that?
Well, when we see things, we can't just look the other way. When we're invited to participate in a manipulation, we need to say, no, that's wrong. That's a couple things we can do.
Yeah, it's important to speak out, to spread the word, to lead by example and show other people that it's okay to speak up for themselves.
Yeah. I know we're talking about primarily Hollywood. We're talking about power. But, we can't leave out the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about hiding, the facts and manipulating minds.
Was that a flash? Do we have a caller? It's hard to say.
Ding, ding, ding.
No caller yet. But if you want to call in.
I think
sorry that I interrupted.
That's okay. 663-8492. It's so disturbing to me when particularly someone has religious power over people can convince them that somehow they deserve this kind of sexual abuse. And somehow maybe it'll get them closer to God. Who knows what they say? But they also demand secrecy.
And you talk about priests. These people are in the position of respectability. Like the priest. This is Father so and so. We don't, pastors, priests.
Right. People go to them for counsel, for support on this life's journey. And then to be taken advantage of and again, it's children, it's teenagers, people who haven't been on their own yet and learned the life lessons necessary to know that this is not okay. And, it's like police officers who pull people over and rape them. I mean, they're using their position of power to harm people because they figure they can get away with it. And certainly the Catholic priests have gotten away with it for, I don't know, centuries.
And they've been and the whole system has enabled them to do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
they just move these priests around. If they get found out, they get sent to another school and they start doing it there.
So maybe it's about changing the system of enabling people.
Right.
Absolutely. And how do we do that? That's a good question. If we really want to make a change. But getting back, Maya, to your discussing what you'll do and what you won't do in terms of, listen to Michael Jackson or go to a Woody Allen movie. It seems that if you really want to affect these people, though, it takes a lot of people to do that.
It definitely does. It takes all of us to decide what we morally think is right and what's wrong, and what we can speak up against and what we can listen to. It's like, where do we draw the line? Where is somebody's art just so good that we can excuse them, and where is it not? I don't know. It's a hard question for me, too. For me, too.
Ah, ha, ha, ha. Good.
And,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's probably plenty of art and music that has this kind of dark background that we don't even know about.
Probably most of it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. We've had this thing with Biden, for example, and he was... right now, he's talking about running for president, and a woman comes up and said, hey, the guy was too forward with me. And it seemed like what she was complaining about was not that significant. And
well, maybe not to you. That's another thing, is we're sitting here in this room dictating other people's experiences and deciding what's significant and what's not, but maybe that was very significant to her. We don't know her history of abuse. We don't know her story.
I agree with you, and it obviously was very significant to her, but that just brings up a thought of, we go through our lives and we don't know what's significant to somebody or what is insignificant to somebody. Well,
and likewise, I mean, I don't personally have all the info on the Biden story, but he's an older man. I think about... there's sort of different cultures when, you've got people who grew up in different eras and they think certain things are okay. That, again,
that's a good point.
Doesn't mean it's right. But Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you and I could both name many times when men kind of entered our spaces inappropriately.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes it's even just the fact that their eye gaze drops down.
Yeah, and it's that they know that they have that
Often,
power.
probably.
Yeah. There's certain people that just cannot help themselves.
They know that they have the power to, like, scare us, too. So sometimes it doesn't even take much. All it takes is that eye gaze, and it can be paralyzing.
Mm.
You know, it just reminds me of, you mentioned cultural differences. I had dinner a couple of years ago. I grew up in Ohio, and this was somebody that I knew from school and hadn't seen him for many, many years. And at the end of the dinner, I went to hug the guy. And I mean, in California, everybody gives somebody a hug.
Right.
And he sort of stepped back. It was, he would have
Denied.
just really shocked him. And, you know,
Yeah, I think, there are, we all have different experiences. And I think that's something that, we need to try to tap into a little more strongly with each other instead of just like, bam, oh, that person is, got something wrong with them. And rather, well, let's find out why. I think we need more of investigating why people are the way they are and not just immediately calling them bad because they're, doing things differently than us.
Then again, harassment at the workplace, it's pretty obvious. It's not.
Right. So I guess it's that power thing.
It is.
Yeah.
One of my big problems is people not picking up cues in our culture. Like, we're all kind of on different planes, and a lot of times men think it's okay to do certain things, and women don't, and they are not picking up our cues because they're just kind of used to doing what they do and treating each other a certain way. Like, they just walk through the grocery store and you kind of got to move out of their way. They don't necessarily see you all the time. So I think we need to change this culture of not seeing other people, and we need to be more empathetic and, like, realize when someone doesn't want us to come near them, for example, or when someone doesn't want to be spoken to, when someone has headphones on,
At the same time, there are people out there that don't know how to read cues.
I know. And it's not
and they can't
necessarily
help
their
it.
fault because
Right.
maybe they weren't taught. Maybe they didn't have good
Or they are on the autism
parenting.
spectrum.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah. And that's another thing is, we don't know what's inside that body and in that
Yeah.
mind and in that heart. We only see what shows up on the outside, and we make judgments. And, that's actually one of the things that's really scary for me. And again, I'm going a little off topic with the police force.
There is no off topic in the show.
that they'll, just go full steam ahead with their regime without really knowing anything about what they've just walked into or anything about that person. And they could be faced with somebody with mental illness or disability, and it's like that doesn't matter.
yeah.
And it
Because half the
actually
time we'll
does
end up
matter.
shooting them anyway.
Right. And it really does matter that we know what somebody's going through before we, throw them in jail or worse, kill them.
I think that's a good idea, especially the killing part.
It would be nice to have law enforcement have a better understanding and treatment of mentally ill people in this country.
Do you think this situation of power and sexual manipulation and all that happens in reverse? Like, do you think there's women of power that, I mean, I know they show it sometimes in sitcoms and stuff that maybe, and I suppose, that men might even be hesitant to report stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely does happen. I cannot think off the top of my head right now.
No, there were a
somebody
couple
famous,
women that were
but
called out.
I know there are.
Certainly, men are predominantly the.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's tended to be acceptable in our culture. Women being less than men is a big part of it. Being perceived by the men as oh, the little lady. She's so beautiful, and
It's them not
nice
taking
to have
us
around.
seriously
Right.
in the workplace and social settings and everywhere. So if they don't take us seriously, of course they don't take us coming out with our stories seriously.
Right, and especially if it ruins their game that they're playing.
Of course, the whole disparity in income and pay. I mean, it really begins right there. You're a female. We're going to pay you less for the same job.
Yeah, and
it's a little harder now
because a lot of us work harder too.
And we have some pretty darn good brains.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Stephen.
Thank you for agreeing.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey,
well,
call in. Gee, we're having all this.
Yes.
We can't do this without you. 663-8492.
Oh, they answered.
Somebody answered. Hey, what do you know?
Hello.
Hey, how about joining us? You're on the
Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah.
Please tell us your name and watch your language.
Thank you.
Hi, Stephen. This is Karen. How are you?
Hey, how are you, Karen?
Hi. I'm good. So, this whole subject, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this because I think, yes, there's definitely been a lot of abuse out there, but I think at this point we're getting down to nitpicking. I mean, this whole thing, let's say, look at Biden, for example, it's like, why didn't those women just say, hey, don't do this? Way back whenever it happened. But now because he's maybe possible running for office, then they have to find dirt. And I find that really disturbing because it's like, and I think there's so many of them. You talked earlier about the women being raped. It turned out it was false. Like they went home with somebody and then in the morning they regretted it and then they called it rape. And, it takes away from, in my opinion, from the people that have really been abused. All of the kind of pretend and coming up later and doing it for political reasons.
Right. That's
on, and it really hurts because, as an adult woman, I mean, when I was younger, there was a situation I can look back and say, that was probably inappropriate, but you just learn to handle it. You just deal with it. And I think today a lot of people, women especially, are made into victims. Oh, we're victims because this happened. And come on, there's a point of self-responsibility. If you're running around with your breast, I guess you're going to use that word, kind of hanging out, you're asking for it.
Asking for it.
You're
asking for it?
Yeah, I think
that's funny.
I think you're
very funny.
You're asking for inappropriate for men will look, and so cover yourself up a little bit.
So women can't dress the way they want to in America in 2019. We can't be comfortable in our bodies. There's a big double standard there.
It's not about that for me. It really isn't. I think there's a lot of women putting out seduction energy, and yes, the men, they react. And I think there's a place with just something called self-responsibility.
Where's the responsibility for men, though? Where do they...
Well, the same...
I mean, they react, but maybe they shouldn't?
Hey, could we just hold on 1 second? I just want to thank some of our supporters. Don't go away. This is, I'm glad you called. We're right in the middle of something important. But I just want to let everybody know that the Bolinas Community Center is one of our supporters. In the heart of Bolinas, providing a place to celebrate life and community through music, events, community nights, and classes. Information about events or information about joining, volunteering, or donating is available at 415-868-2128 or online at bocenter.org. That's bocenter.org. We have one more supporter we'd like to thank at this hour, and that's the Marin Agricultural Land Trust. They are a member-supported nonprofit organization working to preserve Marin County farmland on the web at malt.org. That's MALT, God, I should know that already, .org. Okay, we can be back to having Ed.
Talk.
So let's discuss this culture of victim blaming that we've got going on here and how we separate victims like the ones who deserved it and the ones who didn't based on what they were wearing, because I know there are a lot of people...
No, that's not what I'm saying. You're putting words into my mouth. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is...
Did I not hear you say that some of us are asking for it?
No, I said if when you're out there and how you dress and how you do, yes, there's a definitely showing off. I mean, young women and women.
It's tough. I know.
I'm having a hard time expressing what I'm really feeling. But I'm just feeling on many levels. Yes, there's been a lot of abuse, especially in the Catholic, and especially in the movie and Weinstein. Yes, there's been a lot of it, and yes, I'm happy it's out. But I think that there's Me Too. So many people are jumping on the wagon for. That is incorrect, and that's taking away from the real victims.
So you think maybe some people might be taking advantage of this moment in time to go on the offensive towards some men that they want to take down, whether it's true or not?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I suppose that could be true. I think that we just have to be careful about, just like we want to assume the best about Biden, I think we need to assume the best about the women who come forward, before we decide they're just playing a game.
Of course. But I think, unfortunately, there's so many. There's been a lot of stuff for women. They, I was raped. What they actually, in reality, they went home with a guy, and then in the morning, maybe they had a little bit too much to drink, and they did whatever they did, and then in the morning they wake up and they say, "Oh, Jesus."
You're getting on a very slippery slope there. But I would, I'd like to ask a different question here because Maya and Shelley both expressed something that I think we need to dig in a little deeper. On the one hand, you guys said that men often don't pick up signals. If I recall, you said
they pick up the signals they want or the signals they project onto us. Like, our society kind of makes us sexual beings. So a lot of times, whether we're trying to dress sexually or not, we are perceived sexually. Okay,
well then you said that in this day and age, I should be able to wear anything I want to wear. But aren't you also sending a signal? Doesn't I think?
Hey, I got raped when I was 11, and I was wearing corduroy pants my mom sewed for me and a crappy little T-shirt.
I'm not in any way.
It had nothing to do.
I'm sorry about that. By the way,
it doesn't matter at all what we're wearing. Like, we could be in gym clothes. It's not about us. It's about the way men act, and it's not about us changing how we act. It's about how they act towards us, because a lot of us are just out here living, going to the gym, walking at night, dressing how we want. We're not hurting anybody. It's them who are harassing us.
Well, and then what we were really talking about at the beginning of the show is the abuse of power. Power, rape, those things aren't really about sex as much as they are about power and control and expressions of anger against women for whatever reason.
Yeah,
well, I just want to put one more in. I guess the bottom line, what I'm really trying to communicate is that I think we should be careful, both as men and as women, not to play victim and not take care of yourself, but don't play victim. And I think there's some people out there, both men and women, that they come in and they play victim. And one thing I cannot stand is people that play victim. I'm really so strong for self-responsibility.
Yeah, but there are times when it's really out of our hands.
Yeah, some of us really are victims, and I have to wonder if you're more upset at the people playing victims or more upset at the people making victims.
Both.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate when people do lie about what happened to them, because it hurts innocent people, and it also makes it harder for us to believe actual victims.
Correct. And that's my point.
But it's hard to decide who the actual victims are, because it's not for us as bystanders. This isn't a spectator sport. It's other people's lives. And if they define themselves as victims, who are we to say, no, you're not a victim?
Right. But I think, unfortunately, that there is a society today, generally. I'm from Europe, so, I have a different way of looking at things. And there's a society today in the United States of America that there's a lot of victim. I didn't do it. It's not my fault. Let me sue. Let me do this. There's so much of that. And I think also, unfortunately, in the Me Too movement, there's coming in people playing victim because they couldn't just have self-responsibility.
Well, that's an unfortunate outcome, but I think it is an important movement because there have been so many women that haven't been listened to.
Oh, absolutely.
Or they're afraid to come forward because the system just bogs down and doesn't help them.
That's true as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, but being a woman, I'm a mature woman, and I have been in my life, I've had situations that I had to just deal with.
Well, you were lucky that you could.
You're lucky you don't define yourself as a victim. If you don't feel like one, then that's really good for you.
Yeah, well, it's then I think more of us should step up to the plate and be responsible, self-responsible.
But you need to recognize that a lot of these victims are a lot younger than you. Also, a lot of them are children.
I was young once. And I don't need to go into details, but I was young once, and looking back, there was a situation I can say, okay, looking back, I couldn't play victim, but I chose not to.
Well, thanks a lot. We really always enjoy when you call in, by the way.
Okay, well, you take care.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, bye.
I just want to get back to something, though, and I just want to make it clear. In no way do I feel that the way a woman dresses has anything whatsoever to do with being raped.
Thank you.
Okay, no.
Thank you.
I think that's pretty easy to say, but I think it's crazy to assume that the way a person's dressed does not send signals. I'm going to a job interview. I'm going to wear a suit. I wear it depending on the job. I'm going to wear a suit. I'm going to wear a tie. It's a signal. I want them to get certain messages from the way I'm dressed. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that it's impossible for us not to look in the mirror when we get dressed and not see what the message is.
Well, and there's also the whole cultural differences things, that can cause confusion for people.
Absolutely.
In knowing how to handle things.
I understand, like, if I dress in a sexy way, I may be putting out that signal, but it's up to you what you want to do with that signal. If you want to stare at me, catcall me, or maybe just glance and be like, wow, I appreciate that she had the courage to wear that out, especially now.
Well, all right. We've got somebody who's a caller. We'd love to hear what you have to say. You're on the air.
Yeah. Go ahead. Your name?
MK.
Hi, MK. Thanks
you
for
know
calling.
not to use foul language by this time, huh?
Well, blankety, 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 blank.
Oh, no.
Right?
Look out.
And also blankety, blank.
Here comes
agreed.
MK.
Look out. I'm thinking about nobody likes to be told that they're wrong. And I think that's what's happening right now. All I could think of in your conversation was the guys, the wolf whistle, the construction crews, wolf whistling at girls walking by. And suddenly they're told that they can't do that anymore. They're not the brightest in the world. They're just these guys, and that's been their MO forever.
Right, cultural. Yeah. It's cultural.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, and they don't like to be told that they can't do that. So that puts their backs up.
They're not used to being told, no, you're right.
But it works both ways. I'm not saying that they're right, but by doing it, but they've gotten away with it for a really long time. And so, it is a cultural shift.
Right.
And, I totally agree that rape has everything to do with power, mm-hmm. and very little to do with sex as such. It's a power play and a horrible, unnecessary, awful thing that you have to carry around with you for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life.
I'm not exactly a stranger to it myself. But I think a lot of us who are of a certain age put up with bad sexual experiences at a young age because we just didn't know what to do. And,
right.
And we were silent, and we can carry this, and then it colors all of your subsequent relationships up to a point. I think as you get older, you finally find real love with somebody if you're lucky, and then you can calm down about it. But it doesn't go away. It's a big deal. I don't know about the clothing thing. I mean, my granddaughter's 12. About to be 13, and she goes to school with short shorts and just long legs sticking out, and they let them do that. And I think It shouldn't be, but I think it's provocative.
Right. I mean, I know I had 2 little girls, and going shopping for them, I mean, there's certain clothes that are available in the store, and, you know, unless you want to sew your own, you have to choose from what's out there.
Well,
and there's
part
certain
of the
trends.
culture of
Yeah.
sexualization.
Yeah.
There's a lot of peer pressure, especially in the young teen years and all the way through. That you want to be accepted, even though, as you look back now, I think of the cliques in high school when I was in high school and how I never really fit into them because I was more of an art person and so it was sort of like the lunatic fringe all the way along. So you think, do I really want to be like those people? I look at it now.
But it sounds like from reading between the lines, you are saying that there are certain clothing that are inappropriate.
Well, I think that, yeah, I can't help but think that, yeah, I do think so. But then you're telling people how to dress and how to be and so on and so forth. I don't know. It's a very complicated situation.
Well, that's why we're talking about it.
Right, and I'm glad you are. So anyway,
I think it is cultural, and I think times change, and I think that sometimes people don't catch up with the times. I think in many cases I haven't caught up with the times. I still, when I was a kid, if you came in wearing tights, they would have sent you home to put your skirt on. I'm just saying I grew up.
You used to wear tights and skirts?
No, I'm saying if a girl came in wearing yoga tights, hang on, by the way, we have a second caller. Back when I was a kid, they would have said, "Hey, go home and put your skirt on. What's going on?"
Right. I wasn't allowed to wear pants to school.
We had to wear a skirt a certain way.
There you go.
They would measure our skirts in middle school.
Hey, let's see who's online here. They can join our conversation. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, you're on the air. Give us your name and
watch your language.
Yeah, watch your language.
It's Lions.
Hi, Lions.
Oh, hi, Lions.
Hey there. The clothing thing is such a puzzle because how we dress is one of the many ways we express who we are. And I think we all want to have that freedom.
Absolutely.
And
I think the kids are trying to find out who they are, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of it.
I think that's true, too. For me, as a baby boomer, a miniskirt wearer, it was fine then. I had some very awkward experiences myself, as MK mentioned. But
we're getting feedback from you, Lions.
let's see. I wonder. Let me get my mouth closer to the thing.
Thanks, Lions.
And so, I've worn what I wanted to wear and had fun with it. And what eventually came to me was I didn't feel safe wearing certain things in certain places because we don't have a safe society.
That's right, and that kind of awareness is really valuable.
Yeah. And the other point, sorry, Maya.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
Oh gosh, now my brain's flying away.
Take your time.
Catch it.
It'll come back.
Okay.
It'll come back. But so at a certain point in my life, when I was going out onto the street, and who knew what was going to be going on around me, I would dress more modestly, let's say. But whether it was you, Maya, or somebody else, things happen anyway. You can be wearing PJs that look like sweatpants or whatever,
right?
And
Absolutely.
stuff happens.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that. So it is terribly complicated.
It's because
The other thing, can I say one more thing about clothes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a place of competition, and particularly, well, maybe not just among women, but I see a lot of clothing competition among girls and women. It's something we sometimes use as a weapon against each other.
Well, or there's...
And I loved wearing a uniform in high school and grammar school.
Me too. I think I'm a big fan of uniforms.
I can just be me. You're not paying attention to what I'm wearing.
It's a good
me.
thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
Well, thanks for calling, Lions.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Can I go ahead and say something?
Of course.
I think that a lot of focus is put on what women and young girls wear to school and not what the men and the young boys at those schools do and how they treat the women wearing
Right.
those clothes. Like, it's not really about what they're wearing. It's about how you act towards us. You know, it's up to you guys in the end.
Yeah, I remember when I was about 15, I was with my family, and we were staying in a one-room apartment that had, it was like a hotel room with 2 double beds, let's say. And so my mom and I slept in one bed, and my 2 brothers slept in the other. But we all had to share the space. And on this particular day, I was changing my clothes like I always did, and my mom said, you know, oh, you better cover up, in front of my own brothers. But it sent a message to me, you know, I needed to cover up. I need to put my legs together. I need to be the one that's...
Yeah.
And we do need to protect our own space. And we do need to protect our own, you know, well-being. But it's kind of like you said, it's like putting it on our shoulders to be the ones that, you know, do the right thing and dress the right way and, you know, don't go out at night and don't go to bars, or, you know, it'll be our fault. I mean, that's often the message we get.
Yeah, like, why are we so regulated? Why aren't men's actions regulated? Why is it all up to us to act right?
Starting to be.
I think it is starting to
be a little bit too late.
It's never too late. Okay, we're gonna
never too
evolve
late.
into a better place, right,
What
MK?
I was thinking about that is that this culture that we live in is absolutely obsessed with sex. I mean,
You know, we penalize. Wait a second. We penalize modesty.
What do you mean?
Well, take a look at you know, in the Muslim culture. Modesty is very important. A girl comes to school and she's got her head covered, and as a society, we're not ready for that. We frown on it. She's supposed to uncover her head.
Well, the Mormons
that's a
cover up
penalty.
too.
I know, but we look down on that person for being modest.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's more that we just don't understand why they're
it
doing it.
must be terribly hot.
we should just let people do what they want to do with
we have
their own
another caller on
appearances
there?
and not treat them differently because
we
of
do.
it.
Right.
Hey,
Hello.
caller.
I agree. You got to slide it up there, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
Okay.
getting ready. Hey, you're on the air.
Welcome.
Okay,
Keep it clean.
it's Lions again. I turned the sound down just as you were mentioning
Welcome
modesty,
back.
which is what I wanted to come back and say. There was a fabulous textile show at the DeYoung Museum, I don't know, within the last 6 months.
Yeah, I remember that.
Muslim fashion.
Mm.
Women who are dressing modestly.
Yeah.
They have so much fun with the clothes.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
a fabulous show and absolutely fascinating to think about issues of modesty, issues of fashion. How might these worlds intersect? Anyway,
Yeah, some are really empowered by modesty, and some are really empowered by dressing and acting more sexual.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's up to them what they want to do, and we want to be there to empower them for doing what they
Okay,
want.
but wait a second.
Yes.
You said some people are more empowered by dressing more sexual. Well, isn't that a message though that you're handing out?
The message is that they are
What is the
comfortable
message?
with their bodies and they are comfortable
I see.
looking and dressing sexual. The message is never come and get me.
But wait, of course not. And I'm not talking about that in no way. I think
not
I
sure
started by
what the
saying that,
answer
but I just want to follow this one more. We do give messages. Sexual is not the same as comfortable with your body.
Yes, it is for a lot of women. It definitely is. If you're comfortable with your body, then you're saying, screw everybody telling me that I can't dress like this. Screw everybody telling me that this is not modest. It's weird that we have this in our culture that we say that a woman's body isn't modest. Like, we're literally born into these bodies. I wake up in this body every morning. Is there something that wrong with it that I can't walk around and show some of it?
Yeah, men can walk around with their shirts off.
Yeah, but nobody's
Yeah,
saying
there's
you
a
can't
total
show some of
double
it.
standard.
I think there's a difference between dressing sexually and dressing as comfortable with your body. It's just different messages.
Yeah, but
Like
that's,
a-
that's different.
There are an awful lot
Different
of
lines are being drawn by you, Stephen, and me, Lyons, and Maya, and Shelley, and so on. We still live in a culture where there is a presumption that men have the highest rights, and that if a woman is dressing in what someone might think was attractively or sexually, that it's okay for him to act on what he is responding to. He does need to control himself.
Yeah, we're trying to change that. We're trying to change that message, definitely.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Lion.
you.
What were you going to say something, MK?
Yeah, I was. I was just thinking about the difference between Bozo the president and
Oh, we're getting some action here.
and Pence.
Yeah, what about?
So incredibly repressed.
Uh-huh.
Can't go out to lunch with somebody unless his mother.
Mother, he calls her mother.
Is there. And then there's Donald on the other side who just goes around and bleeps everybody that he can find, and it's so peculiar to me.
Yes, it is, and that it's even accepted by the evangelicals. Hey, we got somebody on the other line. Let's get them in on this conversation. Hi there, you're on the air. Your name, please, and watch your language.
And keep it clean. My name's David.
Hi, David.
And,
Hi.
Maya, I appreciate having a new voice on the show.
Thank you.
I like that. But I want to say that I just read an article recently about schools that are grappling with the with girls in high school, junior high and high school, who are wearing leggings in school. And well, for one thing, I'd like to say that I always like it when I see somebody walking around with legs. I mean, it shows every little nuance of their body, and it makes my. I mean,
they're comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys are getting it at all. Really, you're not able to look it through other people's eyes.
I think David's peeking out the window and getting an eyeful.
I just don't think you get it.
So every time I walk by you on the street now wearing my yoga leggings, what am I supposed to think? Just out of curiosity.
You're supposed to think I'm looking at you, and if you looking at you is the first step in attraction, and attraction leads to. I mean, it leads down all kinds of paths, but you are attracting attention.
And then what about with children, though? If they're kids, younger girls wearing those leggings to school, if they're in middle school, then aren't we sending the message that with how they're dressing, they're being sexual, even if they're underage?
There's a difference.
Yeah, no, I think you're ingraining them with the Victoria's Secret's culture, which is what has shaped a lot of how women dress. I mean, I've seen women walking around Point Reyes with camel toes showing. And do you want me, as a man, walking around Point Reyes wearing tights?
Hey, I've seen that too, David.
That's up to you, honestly. It's our camel toe. It's not your problem.
Is that one of those words we're allowed to say?
I mean, sometimes there are men, frankly, that do show off their parts.
Their package, I think.
Yeah, their package and their parts.
And people whip out their... And we don't want to see that either.
Boy.
I censored
Wait,
myself.
you don't want to see that?
It's all right. No, she said
like
she didn't want to see it.
Who is that comedian? Louis whatever. Louis C.K. Like, he was just whipping it out. And, like, how is it okay for him to do that, but it's not okay for us to wear leggings in public?
Nobody's saying you can't do it.
No, but they're saying that, like, the focus on us, and no matter what, we're under that male gaze, we're under that scrutiny, basically no matter what we wear. I'm just saying that we should all be able to dress how we want to for our bodies, and we should all treat other people with respect, regardless of how we dress.
I think it's also...
You're going to stir things up and weigh things that... there are ways that you're going to calm things down.
Well, yes and no. I mean, everybody's different, David. You get excited with leggings. Somebody else might not. And I think it's just our...
People, if you got a candid answer from most men, you would say, yeah, we like...
Well, that's fine. But I think it's really more that we're, as human beings, we look at each other. As human beings, we're curious. We notice things. But, I think the danger is in the assumption that people wear things because they, hey, look at me. I mean, there are a lot of people that probably do that. But it's also, trends, what people wear, whether they look good in it or not, whether they should show off, things or not, they'll wear it anyway.
I think that's a very good point.
It's not because they want you to get... it's not because they want to be sexualized.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of men think that women dress for them, and that's like where part of the problem comes from. We're dressing for ourselves most of the time.
A lot of women dress for men.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't, and the point is, like, you don't know who's dressing for you and who's not, so you should leave everyone alone.
I'm just trying to point out, well, I think you're naive if you don't think that what we wear sends out signals. I just think that we have to, when I was a hippie and I dressed, when I had hair, it was long, etc. And I was sending out a signal to everyone. It wasn't like, hey, don't worry about me. I'm just like you. I wasn't just like them. I had different attitudes. I had different points of view.
I was
from
hitchhiking
the straight community
through the South with a hippie look, and I got yelled at when I was in South.
See,
You
that
sent
wasn't
out a signal.
That wasn't necessarily your fault. You weren't saying, "Hey, yell at me. I'm wearing
we're
this."
We're not
Right.
ascribing a fault to the person dressing it. What I'm ascribing is that you're not paying attention. Not paying attention to what you're saying. That's all I'm saying.
So, yeah.
I think that's well said, Steve.
By the way, this has been a great hour, and I'm glad we got lots of calls.
That felt condescending.
Well,
Sorry.
that's okay. You're allowed to feel that way.
We're out of time. This is a tough issue, and thank you so much to all our callers today.
Thank you.
And thanks to Maya for being here and sharing her perspective.
Shelly.
And Stephen, good job running the board today.
It's not over yet.
Slide those callers down.
It's not over yet.
And turn them off. And this has been the opinions of us and the callers, and in no way reflects the views of KWMR, its board, or anybody related with KWMR. And thank you so much for calling.
Hey, appreciate it. This has been it. Bye-bye.